that Matt or Melissa also be here, but maybe not. Um, let's see. Whenever there's a beep, someone joined, right?
Yeah, it says waiting for name. Let's see who appears.
Okay.
Matthew.
Hi, can you hear me?
Uh,
There we go.
Hear me okay?
yes, hi, Matthew.
Hi.
Chris, this is not the Matt I was referring to. We
Oh,
have, you know Matt, which is you, I think.
so it looks like we got one more person arriving.
Mark.
So I can give a quick update on the Vivo Hackathon. It's starting next week, and a lot of us will be arriving on Sunday, and the hackathon starts officially on Monday. So, kind of exciting. Um, I've got
Yeah,
some. I'm
I'll,
bringing. I'm bringing. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna say yeah, I have reservations and I'll be there for sure too. And I'm not sure who else is coming. Is there a list of people and who they are, and or is that the first day we'll get oriented?
I think it's the first day. It looks like we have about 25 people coming.
25. Okay,
So
sounds good.
I wouldn't say all the usual suspects, but kind of all the usual suspects.
Okay, so Chris, you were going to go through the agenda, right? Or you want me
Oh,
to
sure.
talk? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So,
okay,
welcome to the monthly ontology call, and thank you for whoever dropped the list project ideas in there. So we have an upcoming hackathon at Cornell next week, and you can still register. Registration's free, and the hackathon is free. So if you're in the area, if you know anybody that might be interested, all the more the merrier. So anyway, the new call structure. So we're trying to have this call once a month, and we're alternating it with biweekly with the apps and tools call. And what we're trying to do is just to get um, a regular time together where we can get people that are interested in the ontology to meet. And we're recording these calls, and we're going to kind of do the same format we did with apps and tools, and find a place to post them, so people that had a chance to miss or didn't have a chance to come and miss them can watch them later. Um, We'd also like, as we gather these calls together, we'd like to start gathering questions and feedback from the ontology community, or from our community, Vivo community, on what topics the ontology working group should work on, and what they'd like to see in future calls. So please feel free to, and again, this is a Google Doc which we share with everyone. I'll put the link in the call here, and then Shahem, I believe, sent out the link to the agenda. So please feel free to edit. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to jump right in the Google Doc. If I hope you can see it, tab right in and add your idea here. On that note, Violetta from Texas A&M had a question that I couldn't quite answer, and I thought I knew the answer, but I don't think I had the answer correctly. And so I asked Violetta if she would mind letting us talk about it here. So I think that we should have kind of a data modeling problem of the month, because I think all of us use the ontology, and we may think we understand it and how it works until we actually go to put data in it. So along with looking at things that are missing in the ontology or things that we don't have correct, I think also modeling how data goes in and what data looks like, I think is going to be an important ongoing agenda item for the ontology group. So, Violetta, could you describe the problem?
Yes, yes, I noticed this in karma, but I don't think it's a problem with ontology. I think, how do I explain it? I think it's a lack of understanding on my part. So I was asking for help, if somebody can help me get this down, because I'm modeling in karma, and I was like in 1.5, I completely forgot that the date time value is not a data property anymore. It's an object property, just like ORCID ID. So now I don't know how to model the date in karma. I really don't. So maybe when we meet, I can show the karma and how I model it, so some of you can have a explanation and help.
And what it looked like to me, although I couldn't quite see it, it looked like that she was missing an intermediate assertion that linked the gate time interval value um, to the publication or the instant.
I sent you just the triple file before
Right.
it's all the inverse properties are added and all that. So you have to load that to basically get the whole real data. You know what I mean? The complete RDF.
Right.
Because that's before the inverse properties and everything else is added. So I didn't have time to look at that this week because I was busy preparing another workshop for some colleagues here. So I just finished today. So maybe today I can look at it and see exactly. I thought of solving it maybe just by getting the ID of each article or each book and modeling and attaching the date value directly to it, so adding it additionally, and it will go under publication date in that case, not under other date time. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. No.
Because right now it's showing up under other, and it's not showing up under publication date, which is wrong. And I don't like, I noticed that on the co-author network graph, when you go and you cannot actually see any publications, it says years unknown. So any help is much appreciated.
So I'll go dig up the triples and look. Has anybody else had this experience?
This is John. It sounds like it's a bug in the code, not an ontology problem.
John, I thought the problem is with me, not with the code.
Oh, I'm not sure you want to map it to DC date. That may possibly, but I'm not sure.
No, I deleted that. I deleted the DC date at the end because that wasn't showing anywhere. At least
right.
The VIVO date time is showing under other, right?
Right, so the date time value is showing
Yeah,
up.
since you're in there too, just feel free to lead on whatever questions or stuff, you know.
I'm sorry, who was that? I don't know what happened.
I think Don Ellsberg thinks he's on mute and he's not. There you go. Don muted. Yes, Violetta sent me the triples. I was looking for.
Whoops, I hit.
There we go. So here they are. Here's the triples. Put them back in the notes.
Okay. Oh, that's Ted.
Oh, that's Ted.
Yes, that's Ted.
Most specific type. That's the one I couldn't think of. And that was how he was getting down to date time. I don't know, Ted, you want to... I knew there was some intermediate object you had to link date time to.
Well, I think the problem that Violetta was running into is that she was asserting the date as a data property rather than a object property that links to a VIVO datetime class. So I think you got that part cleared up. Now it's more of a karma question, right? How do you?
I think so. Yeah, that's what I said. I think the
issue
problem is with me.
Yeah. So I think it's the takeaway from the problem was that dates are an
object
related
property,
to publications via an object property, and
just like ORCID,
which gets complicated in Karma because you
Yes,
need to
it's very complicated.
mint URIs for the dates.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I think, where the problem stands.
Mm-hmm. So when I see you next week, we can open Karma and we can figure this one out, right?
Sure.
Good, we're all set then.
All right, so I just had a quick question. We're starting a project here at UF for trying to put information about postdocs in our VIVO, and I was just wondering if anyone out there had done a job of modeling mentor-mentee relationships in VIVO, and if they'd be willing to talk offline, off the call.
Well, they are in the ontology, so it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be new modeling. They're more advisor relationships, but there's the advisor and advisee side of it and everything. I'm not quite sure whether the custom forms are there, but I think they might be. If not, we could work on that next week with Tim Worrell.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't know if I guess I should use the word modeling carefully. I just meant, had anybody taken a bunch of data about postdocs and stuck it into VIVO, and could you write a Sparkle query to pull out who mentored who for their who worked in whose lab, who mentored who, and then the same thing with graduate students, doctoral students. So
We were supposed to do that on a large scale, but then that was abandoned, so we didn't.
we've been on hold for kind of a couple of years, but it's finally come back around where they're really interested in getting some of this information to help generate data for T32 training grants for the NIH. And so they've actually put some money behind it, and we have a person that's going to go and curate the data. Somebody with one of your group of somebody with a master's in library science.
Yeah, the ontology anticipates that, and you can certainly put temporal information on the relationships, and you can separate who has which role, the advisor role and the advisee role, and you can also link it to a thesis.
Oh, really?
So
cool.
There's quite a bit there in the ontology, but it may not have. I'm not sure anybody's ever used it, which tends to mean that there may be little gotchas in there.
Okay, well, cool. Well, I'll keep everyone up to date then. We literally just started yesterday, so we're gonna be using that, and if we have any questions, we'll bring them up. But I'm kind of excited. I think one of the questions we're gonna have in the future too is this may be a real use case for storing private information. So I know that's been a long talked about topic in the VIVO world for years. So. Some of the information you have to store is like their GRE score, which is restricted. So that was it. That was my question. Thank you guys for that information.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's at least some. We'll probably have to do a little help or a little bit of checking with the modeling, but we can look at that next week.
Cool. So VIVO Hackathon in October update. So we just kind of gave a preliminary update earlier, and thank you to whoever put the links in here. We have more information about the hackathon and logistics here at the hackathon page. And thank you to John and Cornell for hosting and doing a lot of the work and logistics. There's a list of project ideas, it looks like here at. So we have some ideas about VIVO Core, integrating other applications into VIVO, ontology development, deduplication tools with D3, data modeling for Lattice Grid, connecting VIVO to Virtuoso, which we have some people here interested in that too. VIVO Wiki and documentation improvements, VIVO support, building VIVO community, and VIVO Vagrant. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to add them to the list. And I don't think there's is there any last minute logistical information, John?
Well, I just put in the link we're updating with more lists of restaurants and the numbers of the bus route to take you to campus and stuff like that. And we're putting in a sort of a tentative schedule for each day. I think Ted, you'd said on a call yesterday that you would hope there could be kind of a gathering time at around lunchtime each day. Did I get that message right from Jim?
I think so. Yeah. Just we thought maybe we would meet before lunch each day to touch base on projects and make
So
sure.
right about noon, or a little before noon, or when would it be good to
Yeah,
get?
I think noon sounds good.
Okay. All right.
So I have one question from the hotel, Ithaca. We take a shuttle. They told me that they have a shuttle that goes to campus, right?
I'll have to confirm that with the Hotel Ithaca. I hadn't been assuming that because it sometimes, hotel shuttles can get, people can reserve them to go to the airport or something like that. So I was trying to have it not rely on the hotel shuttle, but I can
okay.
confirm that there is one. The hotel's only a block from the main bus, city bus depot. So. And there are a couple buses that come up to campus, and I think actually a number of people are going to have calls. I'm preparing to send out an email just to the people who are coming, who've registered, and pointing to the page that has information to how to reach each other and who's going to have cars and so forth. So,
Good.
And from the airport to the hotel, is that easy too?
Yes, they told me that if the shuttle is not there, you can call and they will come pick you up.
The hotel shuttle?
Yes, the hotel shuttle.
Okay.
And they basically said the shuttle runs every half an hour to campus. So I don't know.
Okay.
That's the person that I talked to told me. Just over the weekend, Saturday, I called.
Hi everyone, this is Max. I'm coming too. So like last time I'm my the last one on board. So I'm driving from Toronto to Cornell. So which hotel you guys stay most? Like I can offer like Violetta if we stay in same hotel. I can offer ride to the campus.
I'm at the hotel that they recommended, Hotel Ithaca, right?
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
If you look there's 3 links in the minutes from this meeting they're actually connected pages on the wiki that have all the contact information for the hotel, and so I would just recommend you check those out, Max. That's great that you're coming.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm
And
looking forward.
If you can fill in if you go to the registration link as well, that will give us your cell phone number and other ways to contact us. So there's a register link. I can also put it in these notes. I think it actually
John, am I registered? I don't remember giving my phone number or anything like that.
I think you are registered, but
Okay.
I can contact you if it's not showing up on our list.
Yeah, I already registered like 10 minutes ago. So I left my cell phone.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, well, fantastic. So one of the other recurring agenda items I wanted to have on the call was just to remind people where to ask questions and where to ask for help with the ontology. And right now we do have a mailing list, and so it's the VIVO ontology mailing list. I'll put a link in here on how to register for the mailing list. And then Shahan, it looks like you've got some new information.
Yeah, I put in some notes of what I've set up just yesterday and today, and this is not necessarily permanent. This is stuff we should kind of discuss in this meeting and decide. We sort of created another GitHub organization. It's called VIVO ISF Data Standard. The URL is there. You see it is just VIVO ISF /VIVO ISF. And this organization, the idea behind it is it will host the current VIVO ISF ontology and other possible repositories that are related to creating a data standard for research and research-related activities. We could adjust that description that you see up there based on the scope of this organization. I just put something there temporarily. If we could have a nice description there, and this organization has its own mailing list, which you see in the Google Doc minutes. But again, that mailing list is not published anywhere yet. It's just between us to decide if we want to do this or not. It's a Google a Google Groups mailing list, which I think is a little bit friendlier than the SourceForge one. I had really trouble today trying to go to the SourceForge site, and I was getting a lot of redirects and errors. I don't know if it was just me or their service. But I've never had issues with Google Groups, using them, searching them. They're very nice. So if that sounds like a reasonable kind of place to have discussions for the VIVO ISF data standard, which is sort of a broader scope than just the VIVO ontology. We have that. And in terms of issue list, you want to talk about the VIVO issue list, Chris, first, and then I could talk about this new thing, the
I
item
was going to
5.
show people, Ted put this in here for me.
Okay.
If you wanted to register for the existing mailing list, you could go here and basically, put in your name, address, and whether you wanted us to receive every email or daily digest.
So this is something we should talk about. So now we have this GitHub organization, 2 GitHub organizations. One of them contains OWL files for the VIVO ontology. The other organization has the VIVO ISF full ontology. And I think we decided on this sort of on the last call and afterwards. Is this something that we'll stick with, or are people not happy with it?
I don't know if I understand the question.
Oh, the 2 GitHub organizations with 2 ontology content in each organization. The VIVO project GitHub organization is a separate one than this one. And that one contains the VIVO ontology files. There's an RDF folder, and I think, Chris, you showed me the place specifically last time.
Right here, right?
Well, no. Let me share a link. The VIVO project, which is your original GitHub organization.
Yeah, I think we had talked last time, Shahim, this is John, about having essentially checking out the VIVO ISF ontology into the VIVO project somehow so that changes would be propagated into the VIVO project.
Right. Right. You could do that. So I put a link in the chat for this call. If you follow that link, and Chris, maybe you could do it since you're sharing your screen. This is the other repository I was referring to, the standard VIVO repository. So this has some ontology content, and this call, I'm assuming it's based mostly on the VIVO ontology content, which belongs to this project, this GitHub organization.
Yeah, but it's not, at this point, there are RDF files from the ontology in the VIVO GitHub repository that are, sort of the distributed version with any release. I think but there's no repository in the VIVO project for the ontology as a named entity.
Right, correct. And
So
our long-term goal to simplify this is to have a tool that creates this VIVO distribution file or files for the ontology. So we'll automate that eventually, and when that exists, we could call maybe, for example, the VIVO ontology is basically a module of the VIVO ISF bigger full ontology. So here, what you're hovering over, Chris, is the VIVO ISF ontology. If you click on this, you'll see the VIVO ISF files, which is under, and I believe, yeah. So you'll see all that stuff there. This is mostly as we left it in our CTSA Connect project. Mm-hmm. So not a lot of changes, visible changes happened here. This GitHub repository, you could check it out and open it in Proj to see the full VIVO ISF ontology. So again, the naming is very repetitive, but the VIVO ISF GitHub organization has its own mailing list, which just was created today and can be closed if we don't think that's useful. So that's what I was trying to kind of say. We have sort of two mailing lists. We have two GitHub organizations. We have one ontology call so far, and we just want to make sure people are not confused. And do we need how the logistics of all this? How should we go forward? What do people feel about it? So I put all this information in the minutes with links to kind of browse and look at and see what's there right now. And then maybe we could revisit this in the hackathon or later call. Maybe the hackathon is the best place to kind of explore all this and decide if this is working for everyone or not.
Yeah, I think it might be good to talk it through. I'm a little concerned about having a separate mailing list. We could, of course, phase out the one that's SourceForge because it doesn't have a particularly good interface. But if you and Melissa feel that it's important to have a list that is not just about the VIVO aspects, but sort of larger issues of the ISF's relationship to things like the DCAT dataset ontology or things like that. It's just that the more we split in, I don't think the traffic is high enough to really be a burden, and I think it's good for our community to understand that there are people in a broader community who might want to use this and improve the VIVO ISF ontology. So I would argue for having one list rather than two, and at least until it's a problem, in fact, and not in theory.
So here's
Sure, no, I'm for that.
so here's the traffic on the list.
Right.
It's not much.
It's not much, yeah, and I'm for that. That's fine. But can we change to a different format?
Yeah, I don't like SourceForge. I have to say I prefer to get away from SourceForge, but
That's fine.
But I agree. I don't want to have more than one list.
We should just then, send an announcement with a new list to the VIVO SourceForge list and urge people to subscribe and maybe we can send periodic reminders. So to the SourceForge list saying, by the way, you're missing some traffic on this list and go subscribe to this other one.
Right.
The only other possible, we've had some discussions about moving to Discourse, which is another venue, but I think that's not likely to happen because there's financial decisions about whether we're going to do it, and we want to have a pilot, and I don't want to hold up. It seems like everybody's doing a transition now, and we should probably have the new issue tracker and the new list and the new repository all at the same time. And does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds good. So let's not then announce this until we finish all these other items, like you're saying, issue tracker and so forth, and have it as one migration that hopefully happens kind of maybe after the hackathon.
Well, I would say we have a mailing list now, but what we don't have is an issue tracker per se that you like.
Right. I will go into what I did, and again, we'll contrast it with what exists, and we could pick one or the other or something else. Just to finish the about the groups, I think I could add the current VIVO ontology mailing list as a user to the Google group. So if anything happens, it just gets sent out to the other list. So periodic reminders that please don't use this list, go to the other one, but any new messages will show up anyway, if that's useful, until it's closed or...
Yeah, that could help.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So I think I could do that. I'll have to double check. About the issue trackers.
Hey, Shaheen,
yeah.
Can I interrupt for a second? I was taking a look at your OWL that's on GitHub, the ISF. I'm assuming that's the ISF full dev OWL.
Okay.
And yeah, I just want to see if I understand this correctly. It looks like you're actually importing the actual ontologies from the obolibrary.org. And I'm kind of wondering what the thinking was, because the OWL itself, like the full ISF, is there a place where that's stored in GitHub, or do we have to go over to the perl-obolibrary.org and check that out? And then the other thing is that ontology, that OWL file, is not really routable if I put that in a browser.
Right. This is So this is just a copy of content of how it was about a year ago. But the way this works is you have to check out this GitHub repository and open these files in Protege. There is a catalog file, if you see the catalog file, that does a lot of redirection. So you think you're getting it from somewhere else, but it's actually in one of the subdirectories. So when you open the ISF dev or ISF full dev, everything should be loaded locally. If it's not, that's an error. I'm almost sure about that. But again, this content is going, me and Matt from OHSU and whoever else is involved over the next 2-3 months, will be working on fixing a lot of things that we have in mind, creating documentation, and making it a little bit easier to understand how this all works. I wanted to have something for the hackathon, so I'll put a little wiki page to explain the basics, just so we don't have to spend a lot of time in the hackathon getting started. But beyond that, we have a lot of things we want to change, and without going into a lot of details, we need to do them and document them, and then kind of start with a new setup. I don't know if that helped answer your question. If you just look at the file, the OWL file in GitHub, yes, you just see an OWL XML document. And it has two imports. It imports the ISF dev and then imports the ISF vocabulary, which is in the SCOS file. So there are multiple levels of imports. That's how this repository is arranged right now. And we could put a diagram of all these imports. And we'll have a little tutorial about how to browse this in Protege, so you get a sense of how it works.
All right, yeah, thanks. I look forward to talking to you over in New York about that.
Sure.
Yeah, and Don, there's also going to be many, the full ISF includes, things like the entire mesh vocabulary, some very large things that aren't necessarily relevant in VIVO. So one of the things we're going to need to work on with him and Matt and Brian really is deciding, Brian did an extract of the ISF for the VIVO 1.6 release that's stayed current for the 1.7 release, and we're going to have to rethink exactly how that process is done and what gets included and how we can make it, provide people options about how much detail they might want about equipment, for example. How much of the Eagle Eye repository at Colorado you might want to bring in more of the Eagle Eye repository because you have a immediate use case to represent equipment, while other VIVOs might not. So.
Right.
Yeah, thanks, John. That's something we're looking at, and again, it'd be a great opportunity to talk over there to see if there's a way that we can, at least in the future, be able to bring in components of the Eagle Eye ontology. We might not need all of the domain-specific information regarding equipment, but the higher level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. We need a core, high-level, small set of classes for the ISF. Right now it's just one giant ontology, and that's something we want to change. So let's see, where were we? Okay, so we talked about mailing list. In terms of issue trackers, so in GitHub, the organization itself cannot have its own issue tracker. Each repository in an organization can have its issue tracker. But if you have some documentation, a wiki page, or if you have an issue that is not relevant to any of the existing repositories in the organization, you really don't have a place to go and put that. So the workaround usually is to create a repository in the organization that's clearly marked as this is the place for the organization. You want the organization level issue, you go and create it in this repository. If you want a wiki documentation that's organization-wide, you create it in that repository. There's no code. It's just sort of a fake empty repository for that purpose. So I have one of those, and we could just talk about whether or not to keep it. It's called, and again, naming is repetitive. It's /VivoISF/VivoISF. So the first VivoISF
/ general or something, VivoISF/general/issues or something like that, so it's clear to everybody that that's what it is.
Right.
Because people might want to upload files to that, like vocabulary lists or diagrams or things like that could be kind of useful to have a timestamp on. So.
Right. So we could, we could. Sorry, go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say the VivoISF /Vivo-ISF that repetition seems kind of awkward, but.
Right. Right, it is. So we will rename that, but we still want to keep it short, easy to type and refer to in commits and so forth, because if you have a long identifier, it gets hard to refer to it in various places, in wikis and so forth. So if we could come up with a better name for that, and if we think it's useful, we'll keep it. It's there, but it's empty, really. There's not much there. There's a little description, I think. So if that works as a organization-wide documentation, we'll start looking at any Confluence content that really belongs at this VIVO ISF data standard organization and try to copy that and maybe edit it and so forth. The ontology, the VIVO ISF ontology, which is a repository in this organization, can have its own wiki and its own issues that are directly related to that repository. And it will probably be mostly for users that are very familiar with the ontology, need that kind of level of documentation and issues. For the general community, it probably should be in the other general one. So that's what I put in the notes about these two things. And again, let's talk about this and see if it makes sense. And if we agree to use it, then we'll add it to that email about new mailing list and so forth. Make one announcement about whatever we decide on. And let's see what else is on the agenda. Is there anything there, Chris? I don't see the rest of the document.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We're talking about documentation, and I think that you're going to put together a GitHub wiki, right?
We have, GitHub. Every repository has a wiki, and we have this additional general repository for the organization-wide. So we will add documentation there. We should probably look through what's in Confluence that really is it belongs more here, and maybe move it here, or refer the other way, one way or another, link them together.
I guess I see that there's two real things that are developing. One is the full ontology, which is huge, and then there's the collection of modules that are implemented as a ontology that can be put into a Vitro application to make a VIVO. And I think that was kind of at the heart of Don's question, because I was thinking the same thing, like, can you point at the OWL file that I could open in a text editor and read all the elements? And that's not quite how it works, but that's from our community standpoint. Maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, but maybe Don can back me up here. That's kind of how I think about it. Like, where do I download the OWL file? So that's kind of
the VIVO ontology,
right?
Right. So again, this is not available right now, but
I'm not saying it should be. I'm just trying to give you the frame of mind.
It is available now. It is available now, and if we put our linked data hats on, it has to be on vivoweb.org/ontology. I mean, it has to be available to linked data requests. I mean, we actually got emails from Sir Tim Berners-Lee about this early on. And he said, hey guys, I like what you're doing, but you've got to have your ontology immediately dereferenceable, so that the canonical VIVO ISF 1.6 public OWL ontology is at vivoweb.org/ontology. And that's where it has to stay. There's no choice about that, because that's what that's the one which linked data requests would reference. So that has to be maintained and be correct.
So the problems there are that there's some content that's imported from elsewhere, so that already has redirections and resolution happening. So I think we need to have both. We need to have a way for people to view the whole thing and visualize that, as well as to resolve any VIVO URIs specifically, right?
Well, I mean, that's why I brought that point up. I wanted you to kind of understand where we were thinking of from the community standpoint, at least on my part, is this is what of course, the link just died.
Yes, Chris, I totally agree. Like we have been working on like a module trying to insert to IS like a VIVO, and the current issue, we cannot identify the problem is in a VIVO level or the ISF structure. Because we're trying to find the documentation to give us some instruction how our small module to match with ISF structure, and how find bugs and fix it. So that's why I come down and bring our ontology and trying to solve the problem. Yeah, we be more interested in a general process if you have actual or you customize module, not extension to Vivo call or something like that. So the general process for you develop a actual module on the ISF structure. Yeah, that's our big interest for this part.
So this is Sham. Let's clarify one naming issue, how we are referring to things. So I see in the notes 6A2. I see Vivo ISF 1.6. So what is Vivo ISF? Because I assumed that we have Vivo ISF ontology and we have Vivo ontology. Vivo ontology is a subset of the Vivo ISF ontology. So if, with my assumption, there is no Vivo ISF 1.6. There is Vivo ISF 1.0, and there is Vivo 1.6, Vivo ontology 1.6. Am I misunderstanding the naming and how we're referring to things?
No, you're perfectly correct, Shahim. The challenge is that we started using Vivo-ISF rather than just calling it the Vivo ontology because 2 years ago at the Vivo conference or a year and a half ago at the Vivo conference in St. Louis, we wanted to get everybody used to the to take the output of the CTSA Connect project and recognize that Vivo was expanding to incorporate the ISF. However, the Vivo application doesn't, in fact, as you know, use the whole ISF ontology. So
right.
From a branding point of view, we wanted to have the Vivo and ISF stay together. So now we're at this place where there's going to be the Eagle Eye application ontology, the Vivo application ontology, both of which use the Vivo ISF umbrella ontology. So we should probably decide
right.
somehow, should we call it the Vivo ISF 1.6 Vivo application ontology? I mean, we'll have to decide this, and it's somewhat political, I guess. So.
Right. Let's not change things unnecessarily. But from what you know, John, when most people hear Vivo ISF, what do they think of? Do they think of the full ISF, or do they think about the Vivo content of ISF?
Well, I don't know. We haven't told them what to think, and it's probably not clear anywhere. So I'd imagine it would be kind of all over the map. So.
Okay. So if that's
what do you think?
This is Max. Let me express myself. For me, it's Vivo ISF. That's why I asked before, what's the difference between Vivo public ontology and ISF, the core. So I never get any answer for that.
Right. So let's let me propose a naming. So, sorry, someone's speaking?
My apologies. That was my computer telling me what time it was.
Oh. Okay. So we have Vivo ISF. Name, a brand name that sounds, John, like from what you're saying, sounds like it's really a replacement for the Vivo ontology name. And we could keep that way. But then on the other organization, which is currently named Vivo ISF Data Standard, we probably should change that to ISF Data Standard or something like that. And then your Vivo naming, Vivo ISF is clearly linking, this is the Vivo subset of the ISF, for example. And then the ISF is just a general thing. So we don't have to keep it ISF data standard if that's an awkward name. We could change it to something else. But in the bigger context, we should remove the Vivo name probably, and just keep that Vivo ISF reference to clearly mean a subset of the ISF. Which is a Vivo subset.
Million of if you Google. So I don't feel like that's a very specific label, and maybe in the future we would want to have a label that's more unique to this more global umbrella. But I think right now I prefer not to change it from Vivo ISF. When I think about the Vivo ISF anyway, and this is just me, I think about the whole ontology that includes all the Eagle Eye components, all the reference taxonomies that we bring in, like mesh, that it's the whole architecture, including all the de novo content. But I feel like in terms of public outreach and messaging, it might be detrimental to change the name right now. Not to say that we shouldn't do it in the future, but I guess I'm quite hesitant to do that.
No, I'm not for changing names either, but the scenario John mentioned you said a meeting a year ago or something, where the name was changed from VIVO to VIVO ISF. That was a change of what? It wasn't a change of the ISF, was it? It was a name change for what set of OWL files, or what set of classes?
It was a name change for the VIVO ontology. But I think I agree with Melissa that it would be very confusing to change the VIVO ISF. You know, it was intended to broaden the VIVO ontology to reflect the fact that new modules were added to it because of the CTSA Connect project, and that now we've further gone one step further to, you know, to sort of get this fully integrated with the larger VIVO DuraSpace effort as an umbrella for the entire ontology framework and not just the VIVO application ontology. So I think if we want to change any name, it might be just being clearer in what we call the subset of the ISF that gets loaded into the VIVO application. And ideally make it be modular, as Don suggested, where you could elect to include most, if not all, of the larger umbrella or a smaller subset than currently has. So I think if we're going to change any names, it would be in sort of specifying what the VIVO application uses, but I don't want to I don't want to sort of rename the umbrella yet again to just be the ISF for the reasons Melissa gave.
Okay, so if we don't rename the umbrella, what is the umbrella called? VIVO ISF ontology?
Yes.
Okay, so, and then what is the VIVO module that comes out of it? What is that called?
Well, we may have to come up with a clearer name than the VIVO ISF 1.6 public OWL ontology, which is what it's called now.
Right, because when we set up, I want to set up new tools where you have clear identifiers and versioning and release cycles, and these two things cannot be named the same. So we need to choose a identifier, not just a label, a title for readability, a technical identifier for the big umbrella thing and the smaller piece of it. And we don't have to choose that now, but we need two different identifiers.
Right, and we also have the ARG namespace still there, and that was chosen for agents, resources, and grants, and also so that we could say "arg" every time we open Protege.
That is not necessarily related to the ontology as a artifact or released thing, so it does not affect the ontology naming and versioning, as long as we maintain control of that namespace and no one else could go there and create identifiers on it.
Yeah, and we just, I think it's also just a matter of consistency where possible. It's not,
Right.
I mean, we already have it, so we probably aren't going to change it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we didn't adopt ISF instead of ARG, but that was a decision made 3 years ago. So.
Yeah, and the VIVO ISF, the bigger umbrella ontology, will have many namespaces going forward. We will want to reuse as many relevant things that are current and useful. We will bring them in, either into the core file or additional repositories under the VIVO ISF data standard. So we will have a lot of namespaces, and this is related to the resolution issue, because namespaces that we don't control, we can't resolve. We'll have to rely on the other people to resolve if they want to. But we can't have an ontology with a single namespace. Otherwise, it's just a private ontology. So the whole idea is that you want to reuse namespaces and vocabularies.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. That's well accepted, I think.
Yeah. So so the ARG namespace, Melissa, do you mean we should change the current entities that have that URI to start fresh, or?
No, I don't. I think as little change as possible right now is best. We're already moving things around and trying to coalesce things. I mean, I recognize it's also an opportunity to make changes where we want them, but there's also just a lot of moving parts that it's maybe better not to change too many things at once. I actually think that ARG is a very reasonable, more general kind of label that we might think about in the future to kind of complement in some way with our ontology naming issues. But for now, it's already the namespace that we have, so we might as well just use it.
Yeah. And I'm absolutely on the side of no changes. Changes are not good unless they're well thought out and done in bulk with a clear advanced warning to the users. So if we have any significant changes, we could document all of them for the VIVO ISF release version 2.0, saying, hey, 3.0 will possibly consider these significant changes, which will be enough warning, and it's far enough for us to make sure that these changes are useful. Because if you just change one thing and you go and change another thing and you realize, okay, your first change clashes with my later change, you really have to think of the whole picture of all the changes. Do they all fit together, and do they? And then people need to vote, yes, we are willing to go through this. And it's useful to do. But okay, so we have one action item is to kind of finalize some of this naming. We need 2 technical names with 2 separate versioning and release cycles for the big picture and the small, for the big one and the smaller one. We don't need to do that today or in the hackathon, but we need to resolve that issue. And let's see what else. Okay, I think I talked enough. I could kind of listen now.
Hey, Shaheem and folks, this is Don. I got a question too. I want to know for the hackathon, is there any thought about having a integration discussion between the ontology folks and people that are working on various ingest tools and perhaps even reader tools, so that if changes do happen with the ontology, perhaps there can be an abstracted interface that we all agree upon is consistent, and the maintainers of that interface will be a little more tightly coupled with the ontology team, so that people that do ETL work won't have to constantly make changes as the ontology changes.
Right. Yeah, we definitely have to have some kind of technical solution for change management. And we have, especially on the Eagle Eye side, we have classes and properties that just disappeared in the current set of files, and that's not good. We need to maintain basically backward compatibility for at least one full release, one major release. So if something is deprecated, your user interface shouldn't break immediately on the next release, but your user interface should generate a warning either internally or visibly to the end users that this item is deprecated, for example. Is this related to what you're referring to?
Well, I was thinking more of an agreed upon container for interfacing that can be used for input and perhaps output. So if we all agree on a JSON, well, I'm just throwing something out, but like a JSON rendition of last name, first name, label, all of the various properties that we're already modeling, but we do it in a more on an interface layer, then ingest tools won't have to be as concerned with the ontology as they are now. And the same with reading, service APIs.
So you're saying you want to consume some ontology content, but not in the OWL, native OWL format. You want some other kind of representation?
Yeah, I think that's kind of accurate. As long as and this might just have to be something that's bolted on, and it's probably more of a discussion that would have to happen between, let's say, the ontology folks and then some of the application developers, just to create that layer of abstraction.
Right. No, I'm definitely for that. I would like to. Again, this is a lot of work, and we will work on it slowly. The VIVO ISF ontology, the big thing, will have we'll have a continuous integration build that constantly generates some build artifacts. One of the build artifacts is a set of OWL file, which is the technical release of the ontology. But other build artifacts could be all these JSON representations, various subsets, any kind of generated material that's useful for anyone. We should generate it with every change to the ontology. That's how people would start using it. So if anyone has a use case for the content that is in the ontology, but it's not a use case based on the direct set of OWL files, please open a ticket and kind of just just as a reminder, just put in your simple use case, just so we could come back to it and understand what is it, how can it be generated, is this a completely generated thing that we could do at build time? Is it useful if it's deposited as a Maven artifact? That's something I like to do, to use in the software. It's useful to have these things deposited in some software repository where you could consume them clearly with a version and so forth.
That sounds fantastic, Shaheem. So that way, perhaps if we have a mapping ontology and that can be worked in with continuous integration, then and then perhaps with some tests too, that we'll know that upstream and downstream users of the mapping, that their code will be tested and verifiable, even though the model will change, because you'll make those changes in the mapping ontology.
Right. Yeah. Right now we just have a set of static files that are committed manually, and there's no build, there's no testing, and all these things we want to work on. So they're on our to-do list. It's just how quickly we'll get to it. Well, we're not sure yet.
Great.
But that's the only way that it will be adopted in big systems that need this sort of stability and functionality. Should we try to finish going through the agenda?
Yeah, I think in general.
Oh, go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, I was just going to say really quickly that if there's other items on the hackathon agenda that kind of touch upon the ontology, that the more synergies there we can identify, the better. I think that one of the goals that we have now is to really try to, have the ontology be more integrated in various aspects of the VIVO project in general. So just want to put that out there.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming to the call, because I think this was a great discussion, and I'm thinking that this is going to help move ontology forward together with applications, and there's a lot of great synergy there. I see a lot of people from our working group coming to this call too, so I'm excited. And I look forward to seeing everybody at the hackathon at Ithaca. Everyone that's coming.
There will not be an office hours next Tuesday, because we'll all be working in person at the hackathon.
Okay.
Hey, John, is there still going to be a Sunday afternoon wine tour?
Yes, I'm trying to. If you're interested, I'm trying to do up my count. I've got, I think, one more seat in the van, but I think had you responded that you wanted to do it? I think you did, right?
Yeah, I'm still kind of Nate and I are kicking it around, because we might do a little bit of cycling when we're over there. So.
Oh, okay.
Oh, John, do you have me on the list? I think I said I want to go.
Yes. When does your flight come in? You weren't sure. You didn't have your flights yet, though.
Oh, I forgot when is my flight. I'm gonna get back to you on that.
Okay.
And John, you were gonna send me a where you guys were gonna have dinner. I was gonna meet you there because my flight gets in later. I was gonna drive and meet you up for dinner at 7 or so.
Yeah, I'll send you that. It's a place called the Hazelnut Kitchen in Trumansburg.
Cool.
Oh, John, I arrive kind of 3 p.m. Is that late already?
Well, it depends on how many. I'm afraid it is, because the winery, a lot of the wineries close fairly.
Oh.
Certainly by 5, and it's about a 45-minute drive to the wineries. But I don't know. We'll have to. I'll send I've got a list of who's expressed interest in the winery, and I'll send an email to that group, and we can talk together about logistics.
Okay.
Well, that sounds great, John. If you have the time on there too, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks, everybody, and see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
See you. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. See you soon.
Excuse me. Go